Let us take a moment to acknowledge the esteemed dignitaries who have graced us with their presence. We are delighted to invite the dignitaries on the stage. I'd like to invite Mr. Hiroaki Kuwajima, Managing Director, KNA Associates, Eisenhower Fellow 2014, Dr. Raman Madhok, Managing Director, Kahani Designs Works Private Limited, former MD and CEO, JSW Limited, and our own Group Director on stage. It is also We are also delighted to welcome the students of St. John's and the professors here who have specially come to our campus for today's session. A warm welcome to our own students in the auditorium and those joining in the brainstorm room, and our extended student community who are also going to be taking part from the YouTube video, which is going to go live. And our Bangalore students are also going to be participating in the same. So big round of applause to all the student community. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker today, Hiroaki Kuwajima, whom we will mention as Hiro-san, a seasoned global leader whose career spans continents and cultures. Hiroaki-san is the Managing Director of KNA Associates, a strategic consultancy specializing in US, Japan cross-border transactions with offices in Menlo Park, Tokyo, and Kanazawa. He is the Haas Executive Fellow at UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business and serves the boards of Metaplanet Inc. And the Japan Society of Northern California. He is educated at the University of Tokyo, Harvard Business School, and Harvard Kennedy School. He is also a published author and leading Japanese media outlets. He's a former senior fellow at the Tokyo Foundation for Policy Research and alumnus of the US-Japan Leadership Program and Eisenhower Fellowships. Hiro-san will be talking on the topic of navigating leadership in a fragmented world from Tokyo to Silicon Valley to Middle East. So I would like to invite him on stage. Please give him a big round of applause.
Just before Hiro-san takes it over, let me express my sincere gratitude to Hiro-san for coming all the way to India. And I'm sure, I think it will augur well from the long-term point of view. And Hiro-san has been invited definitely by our dear friend Sangeeta and Raman. Raman is my mentor in Eisenhower Fellowship. Raman always happened to be a staunch kind of, supporter for me personally, I'm sure, to the V School as well. He's a very senior Eisenhower Fellow. What, 2004, Raman? Yeah, 2004 Eisenhower Fellow. I was 2012. And Sangeeta may be a bit later on. But this fraternity of Eisenhower Fellows is, I'm sure, I think it's a great learning curve for all of us. And let me welcome even Srinivas Patil sir, who is here from St. John's. He's a director of that business school and the students. We thought, and I sought the permission from Hiro-san, that even other students from other campuses also can attend. So our students are here in Mumbai campus and our Bangalore students also there. That's wonderful. And I'm sure in brainstorm room, few more students are there. Yes. The students are in other classrooms as well. So it is outstanding. Today, I'm going to be on the learning curve, like you all. I'm going to take a place there and going to really learn from him. Because let me tell you, we changed a bit of flow because I looked at his presentation and it is fabulous. As normally we talk about a bit of deep dive. So you need to do that deep dive, take a pause, reflect on. Because his address will make you think from your global mindset point of view. You all are going to go through Global Citizen Leadership Program, right? GCL very soon, just maybe about 2 weeks down the line. And from GCL point of view, because GCL brings on the table the Leadership Beyond Boundaries thought process of CCL, which is Center for Creative Leadership. So his presentation, I'm deeply touched with that presentation. And we should also discuss separately after this presentation, what is the learning curve, what are the takeaways? So with this, but before I think, do you want to say something, Raman, for a minute or two, because you also know Hiro-san so well, so it will be good beginning.
Well, I wasn't prepared, but
you don't need any preparation. Come on, Raman.
Knowing Uday, he always throws the googlies at you, you know. So Hiro and I actually met several years ago, and at that time, his biodata was not as expanded as what it is now. And last few minutes, you know, before walking here, I just learned that he's also involved very deeply into doing something which I think the whole world is looking at. And that is how the transition is actually taking place in Saudi Arabia. And I think, how many of you have been to Dubai? Okay. So what is being prepared in Saudi is going to be much larger in area and more advanced than the field which has been prepared in Qatar for the next World Cup. You know how many feet high will be the next matching play area? 300 feet up is the new stadium which has been built. So what NEOM is doing is actually in Saudi, a city which has not yet been even dreamt of. And he's raising money each. Can I mention that, what you just told me? Each one of those contributions from a company cannot be less than $1 billion. So, you know, that's the kind of volume in terms of sheer money he's talking of, which he's putting together. So I think, as Uday said, listen to him very carefully. Who knows, one of you might be there trying to make money for yourself. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raman. So, Hiro-san will be downstairs because the big screen is here. So, yeah, you will be here. Yeah, that's right. And students or faculty colleagues who are sitting there, please come forward. Come here. You need not to be, everybody need not to be standing. If you have a place, you can come here, please. Students, you need not to be sitting there.
No, it's on. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. First of all, it's an extreme honor to speak in front of the very vibrant VSCO student community. And also I sincerely appreciate Dr. Uday, Dr. Maddock, and also the VSCO administration and all of you to come to this session over the weekend. This is also, I'm saying with the humbleness that this is my first time visit to India, and this is the second day in India, and I'm already very impressed by the energy and the promising future of this country. I feel, again, very extreme honor. So today, I'm going to talk about the leadership. But I was also the business school student 15 years ago at the Harvard Business School during the financial crisis. Back then, also, the world, I felt, was fragmented. But right now, because of the trade war, because of the geopolitical situation, the world is even fragmented. So given that context, still, you are in a promising land, which is India. And you are, after the graduation of the school, you are going to, each one of you is going to be a global leader, which is very different from my generation. So I wanted to give you a little bit of the tips today. And I'm Japanese, right now living in the United States, Silicon Valley. And bear with me a little bit of the American accent and American vocabulary, if you found some. So today, I will talk about the leadership, but actually we'll talk about yourself, self-awareness, why it's important for you to know yourself is going to be important in America, people feel super important for you to go global. So based on the kind introduction, I'm Japanese. I grew up. I'm a samurai descendant. So actually, I am the 17th generation of samurai living in the same city for 400 years. So I have a deep roots in Japan, and I have a family business background. So I was raised to be a CEO. But sometimes in life, it happens that my family business had a merger and acquisition. And at the age of 30, I was told my parents, take your life as you wish. So still for me, it's a kind of a journey to be a global leader. So it's in some way, I'm on the same ground with you. So I'm a little bit talking about as a Japanese living in the US, but now going globally to chase the business opportunities. So to put a little bit of the context, what is the world right now? Every day, as I look at US-India relations, it's very different from even last year. So it's interesting, because of internet, because of IT, it seems like our century we are thriving is connected, but at the same time, it's increasingly divided. Why is that? I'm going to address pretty soon, but setting the context. So right now, nations, organizations, individuals needs to find coherence in a divided world. This is the very, very difficult moment and challenge which world is facing. In the past, we had a world called Pax Britannica or Pax Americana, sort of, one dominant power is going to take the lead. But current world, even Japan, India, maybe Saudi Arabia, all of the countries needs to have a leadership, but needs coherence. That is a challenge we have facing right now. So in having said that, the leadership is not about control anymore. The America, still the US president was in Japan this week. And he was also telling Japan that you got to invest in the US and so forth. That is not probably, it's a cohesive. The one country tells the other country to do something. But is that really the type of leadership for the cohesion we need? It's about connection and meeting. So the question today is, what's the way to hold things together if it looks like everything playing apart? Luckily, Japan and India, because of the Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Abe's friendship, we have a really good relationship, which I really wanted to foster. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about country, but also individual to individual. So talking about prosperity, India is promising. I'm sure this country is going to be very different in 10 years. But if I look back, the United States, Japan, maybe China, Saudi Arabia, even for the last 10 to 20 years, Japan was rising tiger until 1990s. But after that, unfortunately, it was kind of flat. The US, it was rising until quite recently, but now it's very shaky. What is the difference? I think any places which is merging has a culture and unity. That is for sure. If, on the other hand, if any of the emerging economies, even emerging individuals, forgets about where the success is coming from, when it comes to a country, I believe it's a culture. It's a strong culture. Every civilization with a prosperity has a strong culture, base, which I'm going to talk about that. So US right now, as all of you know well, is very shaking right now. The freedom of speech, rule of law, open market economy. If you look at any Harvard Business School case studies, for example, you can find the basic rules of being prosperous. Japan is also in a kind of different rule of thumb, maybe diligence, humility, or long-term trust. Japan, for some reasons, is very, I would argue, values on a trustful relationship. It was the rule of thumb, but sometimes it's a winner's curse. It's again, it's not about country, but it's again about individuals. I believe each of you is going to be successful, but you have to be careful that there's a winner's curse. So if any individual country is going to be prosperous without purpose, it's doomed to decline. So what is the culture? The culture is the living memory of who we are, regardless of individuals, organizations, or countries. I heard that yesterday was the day of, the National Unity Day of India. I think this, for example, even to celebrate the date is very important. Why? Because it defines identity, trust, and legitimacy. Understand what it mean. What does it mean about understanding culture? Culture is where you are coming from, where the value of each of you or country or company is coming from. What values, the ethical behaviors. Sometimes, any country individuals tends to forget where those identity, your own culture is coming from. But it's actually also very important because by doing that, you will find which direction you are heading and what needs to be done. So I will really stress that, if you lose culture, you lose direction. To be really honest, what is happening in the US, living in Silicon Valley, OpenAI, all the, generative AIs, ChatGPT, it's all coming, Facebook. But sometimes I see all the leaders are really thinking about what the direction they are taking the country or the people to the future. Honestly, I doubt a little bit because, again, the US, particularly for me, it looks like they are really lost the identity. Japan is also kind of lost a little bit of the identity now, because once you achieved the prosperity of the success, you achieved your effort, sometimes you forget about what leads to your success or prosperity. So if you forget everything about my lecture, but one word which I wanted to bring you back to home today is the self-understanding. Sometimes business school tells you strategy, marketing, accounting. This is very important. If you're trying to be a global leader, you have to have a common language to talk to other global leaders. This is important. Valuations, M&As, multiples, anything, DCF. But what is really important after going, I'm even going to the Harvard Business School education. I'm still learning. Every year I'm learning 100 and 200 case studies every year. Why? Because again, you need to develop your common knowledge and ground. But at the same time, what I'm personally doing is the exercise of the self-understanding, which leads to the culture. Why self-understanding is important? Of course, it's because of you. Understanding your strengths or weakness is also important to be a global citizen, because if you're weak on the finance, well, I need to understand of the cost of capital and so forth. But also why self-understanding is important is because it's important to understand the others. What it means to be a global leader is, actually when you have a counterpart, anytime if AI or IT or anything comes to you, ultimately the business going to human. But if the global business going to be successful, you need to have an empathy. You need to understand the counterpart of even friends, countries with different values and culture. What made the counterpart comes to on the table? This is a little bit of vague saying, but only those who know their own story can respect the story of others. In your life, I'm really envy all of you are still very young, very promising. I feel I'm still very young, but over the years, you feel pains, you have the effort, different cultural backgrounds, geographical background, and then which could be applied to understand why the counterpart, if you are going to, maybe at some point you have an India, Japan business negotiations, you feel very puzzled by Japanese response, I would promise. But sometimes there's a reason, there's a culture, there's the background. So, many professors, teachers tells you, understand yourself. But sometimes they don't teach you all the time why. Because it's understanding others. So I'm talking about what is going to be needed for the next global leaders based on the self-awareness and also the empathy based on that. I think it's a bridge. I think ultimately all the knowledges, business practices is going to be commoditized because of exactly the AI, because of the ChatGPT and so forth. But going beyond, that is why I'm doing the cross-border business, because of the bridge is, I think, the ultimate competitive advantage for the next global leader. Because it's not just conviction and humility, but it's actually self-awareness. This is the most challenging part. To be honest, I think any of the people it's a lifelong challenge to understand yourself. There are lots of tools which tells you who you are, but ultimately, as a personal story, maybe mid-30s, sometimes I feel why I'm a person kind of nervous, or at the same time why I'm taking this thought process. I digged myself, which came back to, actually my value system was created when I was 2 years old or 3 years old. Sometimes it's why it's difficult, it's because it's unconscious. Your value system, which I mean by that, is culture. Maybe the Indian culture you are based on. Sometimes you learn the textbooks, but it's really deep-rooted. To understand yourself is difficult. Having said that, if you master self-awareness, now you are ready to bridge, sometimes east and west. The business school I'm coming from, Harvard Business School, if you go to, for example, in Boston, the college in Boston, immediately you notice that many of our professors are from India. Many of your predecessors are actually crossing the boundaries, borders, going to US, teach. I'm still admiring Indian professors grew up in India and teaching the American students. It's crossing the bridge. And next is the humanity and algorithms. I think every one of you is now using AI for the work, for the study. But ultimately, it's a matter of humanity. But bridging, how to bridge, it's not necessarily talking to AI, but even how to augment your capabilities using algorithms is also a bridge, or public to private. So increasingly, everything is going to be now commoditized. But connecting civilizations, connecting people, bridging boundaries, that is where the value is going to come from. So lessons from my country. Japan was very, very successful until 1990s. I was born in 1980, so in a couple of weeks, I'm going to turn into 45. I'm a kind of generation when going through the spectacular success. So all the textbook which I learned about Japan is too strong and how to harmonize with other economies. That's what I was taught. It's very different from now. Japan's strength was integrity, discipline, and trust, which still hold true. But it's a little bit more my personal opinion. But why Japan was so successful? Because the vision for Japanese were actually beat the United States. US and Japan had a war, completely lost against the US, occupied for a while. And it's a national vision to beat the US economy with automotive, electronics, everything. But after they succeeded kind of beating US, they lost vision and they lost where they stand. That is where decline or stagnant happened. So Silicon Valley, sorry, I talked a little bit too negative about Japan, but Japan is a great country, but going to the great country, but it's struggling. So Silicon Valley, I see many of your colleagues, in Silicon Valley, many Indian expats are being quite successful in Silicon Valley. Why? Because maybe your culture fits into the Silicon Valley's culture, which is agility, reinvention, and reimagination. I will also stress that if you are going to be successful, bridge is one, self-awareness, one, bridge, number two. Three is imagination. Anybody who can think of big picture, big trends, imagine what the future is going to be, is the people who is going to be successful. So look at Satya Nadella of the Microsoft CEOs. You can see anytime the YouTube of his speech. Why he's so successful? Because of the power of imagination. He can propose the future state of Microsoft in the future. So self-awareness, bridge, and big picture, which I mean by that imagination. And coming to Middle East, where I was in a conference called Future Investment Initiative, which is basically hosted by Mohammed bin Salman, the royal prince. There, who was coming? The CEO of Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, KKR, all the financial tycoon was there. Why? Of course, because of the scale, but it's faith to transform the country. And coming back to India, it's a moral dips in my understanding. Or inclusivism, it's still hold territory. It's India. So your task as a global leader is how to integrate these roles is going to be the future of leadership. So I have to stress that true leaders bridge, not choose systems. So it's also very challenging to understand, the world is so much diversified, not unipolar world, but still some of the leaders say this is a system you have to adopt. This is not the case for the global future leaders. So I will again stress that, again, India is going to be very successful. Each of you is going to have a successful career. But sometimes you will forget about the purpose. Why even you are going to be successful? Is that you are going to make money? Or you want to do something with that money you earn? Which is a big difference. So what is happening in the US, what I see, still there's a freedom. Now it's a freedom speech is questioned in the US, but it's a freedom without values. It's just a noise. Wealth without memory, it's a decay. The real challenge for emerging leaders is stay curious after success. Which I mean by that is even though you are going to be quite successful, you need to keep learning, not just learning about management theory, but learning about yourself. That will lead to the sustained successful career or even country. So having those memories, yourself, country, government, organizations, you are going to join the company after graduating the school. Maybe what you want to do first is to look at your company which you join, the history, why this company exists and where the company going forward. So memory system is memory is an immune system of civilization. So a little bit digging into what the bridging means. Sometimes it means bridging contradictions, but where that is the core leadership work. For example, you need discipline, but creativity. Japan is challenged. It has a so disciplined country. For example, it's a punctuality. It's kind of a joke that if you go to the train station in Japan, if the bullet train comes late, 1 minute late, the staff will going to apologize. Oh, sorry, we are apologizing you. We are 1 minute late. It's a very extreme. That's the type of discipline in Japan. But sometimes it's a challenge to keep the creativity. So sometimes you how to bridge discipline and creativity, technology and ethics. We are again talking about AI. To enhance the AI, you need data. But where the data is coming from, particularly at the very initial moment for the generative AI, it's someone's data. So there was always an ethical problem to think about technology enhancement. So how to bridge technology and ethics? That is type of the bridge. Bridge doesn't necessarily mean the bridging borders, bridging countries. And the third point, freedom and responsibility. Maybe today I'm a little bit vocal about the United States, but I think the United States is maybe enjoying freedom in a global context, but maybe forgetting about responsibility. But you need to bridge how to control yourself. So ultimately, the leadership is create new value and shared meaning among the people, organization, country with different background, different context and background. To do that, you need to start from understanding yourself. That is the core message. So those who can bridge system can shape the global next architecture, which honestly, which is quite different from what I learned at the Harvard Business School. At the Harvard Business School, you are the leader, you have to lead others, you as a man. Sorry, it's American way. But after 15 years of my experience globally, I'm changing my understanding about the leadership. So my message to the emerging leaders in India, I'm sure India's rise is certain. Even today, it's weekend, 200 students are coming in. It never happens in Japan. You know, this itself is promising. But the question is how it will lead and sustain. I see lots of successful regions, countries, starting from Japan, United States, and maybe Europe. So last year, I had a chance to go to China, US, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Europe, Middle East. But many of the developed countries is really losing vision right now. Why? The risk of success is the complacency, forgetting its roots, where you are coming from. It's a culture, history. I cannot stress more, more that if you're going to see the future, you have to look at the past. You have to understand yourself. So India's strength, in my view, it's a respect as a social principle, diversity as a creative force, spiritual balance as a moral anchor, curiosity as a driver of innovation. Maybe we can discuss later on with Q&As. But I think, in my personal view, India can lead the world through connection and coalition with sustained self-awareness. Maybe we can discuss, maybe you can teach me why India is now emerging and going to go strong. That type of debate will give you a hint to think about your future or think about the country's future. So closing reflection. As I said, looking at the past, where you stand, to remember is actually leads to respect. By understanding yourself, you can understand your counterpart. Of course, I'm learning about innovations, strategy, marketing, that type of theory, which I love to learn. But actually, fundamentally important thing is sometimes not taught by the textbook is self-understanding. And to respect is leading to connect. By having a respect, now you can connect. Without respect, you cannot make a connection or coalition or power. To connect is to lead. To respect is to lead. And then to connect is to lead. These are the closing reflections. Now we are moving into Q&A. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, this was a wonderful session. Very, very insightful. Dr. Raman, would you like to say something on this?
I think we'll get an opportunity to say.
Fine. So then we would like to then go to the question answers, because I think many of our students have a lot of questions on the session. So we can start with the brainstorm.
I believe, guys, from brainstorm, we can start with those students. Brainstorm in the other classrooms also students are there.
Yeah, 202 is also there.
Yeah. So go ahead. Just keep the mics ready so that we can save time. Somebody can coordinate from the brainstorm.
In the meanwhile, anyone from the audience? Yeah.
Just ask somebody
Hello,
to
sir.
check on the
My
bench
name
now
is Atulya.
and the classroom.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to know your take
Mention
on.
just your name so that our ADC team noted down in terms of your name and participation.
So my name is Atulya,
Yeah.
and I wanted to know your take on globalization to localization, which is the current mode of the world.
With the talent mode.
Globalization to localization, like MAGA
Mhm.
or Make in India or Emiratization, that everybody's talking about their own country.
Mhm.
So from that perspective, globalization to localization, what are your views?
I think the globalization and the localization is not a kind of competing concept. I think it can be compatible. Ultimately, I think globalization is localization, and the localization is globalization. So when we talk about, MAGA, for example, why they're successful? Because, they are actually good at localizing the context. Maybe they are too successful, localizing the context of the global service. So what I think about globalization, in the past, I'm living in the US, I'm having a little bit American context, but there is a word, soft power, of the Professor Joseph Nye of the Harvard University. It means that everyone is going to be attracted America for many reasons. Maybe attractive services, attractive values. I think that was one element that many of non-US countries, including Japan, maybe India, is attracted to one so-called globalized concept, but actually led by America. So that process, when we talk about globalization, is that really about globalization? Maybe it's about one very attractive forces concept is attracting the other, people's mind to the culture. I think that was the era, maybe until COVID. But what is happening right now? You have, for example, Bollywood, right? It's a localized, it's a K-pop, for example. In a sense, it's a very localized context. But now the Bollywood movie is going global, right? So I think what is happening is not a dichotomy between globalization but localization. But actually, each localized content's values are now going globalized in a harmonious way. So maybe what we can think of deeply about globalization versus localization is, maybe the context and definition of globalization and localization is actually changing a little bit. So maybe you can teach me about the localization in the Indian context. Maybe you can help me out. But my understanding is, India has its own agenda. You have to make unemployment, you have to make your own industrial development, semiconductor industry, maybe automotive industry, I'm specialized at, or any AI. Of course, it's starting from local, but your vision is going global, right? So it's always important, I think, about thinking about the context, what it means. And then my answer to you is that it's not the one way or another thinking about globalization and localization. So it's possible starting from local and global. Maybe in the past it was global to local. Facebook was coming to India. I know many of you are not using Facebook anymore, but global to local. But now the trend is maybe local to global. That's what I see.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just add my
Yeah, please. Yeah, please, Raman. Yeah, it is on. It is on, I believe.
All of them have different switches localized.
Yeah.
Check. Just to add my perspective to what Hiroki-san has said is, you know, in the olden days when we talked about globalization or local, why don't you sit down first? Globalization or localization, we looked at it in terms of what is moving. Okay. The companies or corporations in the past used to compete. And that competition actually meant whether your product or your resources are going to move from one place to another. That whole concept actually has changed now in last several years to how your supply chains are. It's no more the question of organizations, but it is the supply chains, because the same supply chains are actually supplying to people both within the country as well as outside. And you have seen this being controlled in a very, very effective manner by China in terms of rare metals.
Yeah.
See what happened? The tariffs were reduced, rare metals came back. To India, they have sanctioned yet day before, but specifically saying you cannot sell to US, you cannot use for defense. So nobody actually uses the word globalization anymore. They talk of resources. So if you youngsters have been reading on LinkedIn, which is actually the best place to be today, you would find Scandinavian countries, Germany, Spain, many of these countries are now attracting Indian talent, especially in the area of healthcare, engineering, AI, and things like that. So what is that now? It's again a question of using a resource which has a capacity or a capability to migrate. And it has nothing to do with globalization or localization, because the moment their needs are completed, they will want you out. They'll not keep you. And let me give you an example of Hirosaki-san from your country. Do you know currently Japan is hiring healthcare support workers from Northeast in thousands?
Yeah.
And you know the reason for that? It's a cultural reason. They look very similar to Japanese. They are very docile. They are fair. So the geriatric care people in Japan are willing to accept them. I work very closely with another institution like yours. We every year have 100 or more engineers getting hired by Japanese companies. Do you know from Bihar, UP, and Odisha, through government approved vendors, there are hundreds of thousands of workers working in Japan today. All these visas are given conditional. You will go alone. You cannot bring your family. You will come back to India for holidays and not vice versa. And generally, your visa is valid for 3 to 5 years and you will never be given PR. These are the realities. They are not defined in localization or globalization rules, but this is the way the future is going to be.
See, I'm just now tempted, Hiro-san, with your permission, to just probably add one more flavor from this side.
Sure.
Okay. So when you're mentioning to this, somewhere every country is looking at their positioning and their competitive edge. India's competitive edge is what? Human resource. And that's our demographic dividend. And today, as you rightly mentioned, in terms of open market economy, US has leveraged Indians to the greatest extent. US has become US because of all these reasons. The entire world contributed. It is not only US people, like Japanese, us, maybe Chinese, Korean, everyone. And when India set a vision for Viksit Bharat 2047, like Develop India 2047. So today, when you look at it, our target is also like $30 trillion. Where are we today? We are close to just $4 trillion, right? Where is China today? Almost $16 trillion. US almost $30+ trillion. So we need to have our resources, as even Raman also mentioned about our resource and human resource. I'll just focus on. So how we can create our own competitive edge. If you look at how many patents we develop, just 70,000. How many patents US develop? Almost close to 9 lakhs. How many China develops? Close to 16 lakhs. So somewhere our focus everywhere, from schooling, education point of view, from the school level to higher education level, that how we can leverage on design thinking, innovation, entrepreneurship. So we need to really not only control our human capital, but we should export. That's why India is talking about, we should be hub for global human capital. In our language, it is Vishwa Guru. So definitely in future, we'll try to have a lot of IP point of view with us. And Indians, probably it's being envisioned by our own Prime Minister and all of us, that instead of working on the hourly rate, like what our IT companies did in the beginning, we should hold the IP with us, and we should raise the bar maybe in 10x or 20x and like exponential growth point of view. I'm sure that will make sense, and maybe the world will revolve around Asia actually. That's the way it looks like for some time at least. Sorry, we took your time.
So
please go ahead.
after listening to Dr. Udai's argument, I even more believe into the Indian future. Because why China was successful? Is that because of China itself? No. Who led the Chinese development for the last 20 years? It's called sea turtles. The whole Chinese who studied abroad came back with the world.
Come, Sangeeta, come on the stage. The guest of honor, one more guest of honor is here from Aizanur family. Please come, Sangeeta. Come. Only we'll just adjust the chair a bit. Thank you for coming all the way from the airport. Thank you. No. We don't have a private jet by educational institutions. In future, we will also have, when we can get you directly here.
Charter.
Yes.
So just finish my sentence. The localization. So all the Chinese came back to China who led Alibaba, who led Tencent. So that is going to happen to India. So when we think about the context of, first of all, this type of globalization and localization, is that the first thing happened in the human history? This no. If you look back 1930s, which was I would say the dark moment of the human history. But actually, always the globalization has a boom and bust. In 1910, for example, there's a Harvard Business case about the globalization, by the way. If you want to take a look at, you can just buy $10 US to look at. The globalization, in 1910, the foreign direct investment, global foreign FDI versus the global GDP, even higher in 1910. But after, always globalization has its pains, and always there's some forces to reverse the globalization. It's a boom and bust period. But one thing I need to say is that there's always the country or the people who takes advantage of the reverse of the globalization. It's a fact. So again, why I talk about self-awareness, culture, history, and so forth, is actually, history kind of repeats. So when you think about India's context, well, United States is making it not just for India, people from India, but for people from everybody. The best and brightest. Now, it's quite frankly, I cannot think it's even a policy. Why kicking out the best and brightest? It's just benefiting the home country, which is India. So again, it's really important. It's a little bit aside from career or business strategy and so forth, but learning about history gives you a lot of lessons going forward.
Sure. Thank you, Hirosan. Thanks, Raman. Maybe my request, I believe, now I think our Bangalore students are there. If there is any question, brainstorm, right? So brainstorm, if you're ready, you can go ahead. Brainstorm in the classroom first. Yeah, brainstorm.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, just loud enough, a bit louder.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. My name is Pawan from Brainstorm. And
Yeah.
as we were talking about globalization, and even Dr. Raman also mentioned various factors and examples of globalization. My question is, how can we ensure that the future of technology stays ethical and responsible as we grow?
How you can ensure the future of technology is going to be maybe ethical and probably responsible, because ethical AI, ethical kind of future from tech point of view is very major issue for us. So that's a question. Thanks, Pawan.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, because at the end of the day, the ethics need to have a definition. So someone has to define what the ethical behavior is. It's always, the history tells us, sometimes beyond ethical boundaries, sometimes people makes money or wealth. So ultimately, I think it's not just about the government. It's not just about the senior leadership of the companies, or it's not just about us as citizens to monitor the behaviors. What the ethics needs to be defined. I think the issue right now is the speed is too fast, and it actually limits the participation of the civil society to control the ethics. And the government cannot speed up with the pace of the technology advancement. So I think ultimately it's our call as an individual. One, what is the ethical conduct of the company? It's very difficult, because we need to study, we need to work, but we need to be really keen on to control and vocal about ethical behavior. I know Indian society is very vocal, so I have no doubt about that. But you need to be vigilant, but also it's your responsibility how to engage with the AI and so forth. Personally, I have a very deep concern about Sora and the whole. It's right now it's not impossible to distinguish it's AI made whatever movie or man-made movies. We are actually going through the very, very dangerous era, because what we don't, unless you see it, you don't know what is the reality, what is not. So actually it's becoming more individual call to make a judgment on ethics of the companies, ethics of the society, and so forth. So I have no right answer to that, but it's becoming more individual call to think about the ethics now.
So just to add on my perspective to what has been just said, you heard him saying that Japan is a very ethical society. You heard about it? So why is it like that? Because of little bit discipline and the fact that it is actually talked about and practiced at home and in schools during the formative years of children's lives. All of you are ethical or unethical, and all of you have depicted that before the age of 7 or 8, believe me. When you see a sharpener or an eraser lying on a desk in a school, which is your friend's, who could be your friend or who is somebody you don't like, did you pick it up and put it in your pocket, or threw it somewhere else so that your friend whom you don't like can't get it? Define who you are. So going forward also, whether all this what we are talking about will be an ethical or not ethical is actually dependent upon who holds that leadership position where the action will determine it and how he or she has been brought up as an individual. And I think he used the word several times, individual's responsibility eventually will define what the team, what the group, what the organization, or what the society does. And it actually comes from the top. All I can say is, when you are at the crossroads, just like yesterday, was the Halloween. So I was at a place where it's at Alice in Horrorland. So that was, I have a picture. If anybody's interested, I can show you. That was the theme in that restaurant, which was shocking for me. And I said, why not Alex? Why Alice? Because Alice, every one of you can relate to, you will be at the crossroads. Whether in Wonderland or in real life, you will have to take a decision. And that dilemma, when you are in, defines who you are. There is actually neither a right or a wrong answer, but you are driven by your own value system. And your value system has taught you, even in Indian context, that sometimes if it is for something good for the society, for people or something, even if you take a rap and you have to do something wrong, go ahead and do it. This is part of our karmas. So please remember who you are, where you come from, what are the stories which have been told to you in Mahabharata, Ramayana, because all the names which are being taken today of people who are doing wonderful job in US or rest of the world, remember, most of the ones have studied in India. They were brought up by children in a society where these values were ingrained in them. And they are living by today in an ethical manner because they have been practicing it, believing in it, and actually contributing as leaders in building that up in their own organizations. So please remember these things whenever you get an opportunity to discuss. In my opinion, actually, we shy away from teaching in business schools our own mythology and stories. That where we came from and why is it important to continuously keep talking about it.
Thanks, actually, Raman. But as Raman rightly mentioned, in terms of be it Satya Nadella of the world or Sundar Pichai of the world, and even not only them, but your own alums, that the global head of AI for TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, is from Wellinger, 97-99 batch. The Morgan Stanley MD of India, Rhythm, is from here. TU Sibyl MD is from here. So you'll really find these are the wonderful examples. And I'm just coming back what rightly said. In fact, Japan is one of the first country partner for us. And I'm sure, I believe some of the classes we did mention about punctuality, right? What happened that a student who came late by 1 minute in Japan? Sorry? She was sent back to India. She was late by 1 minute in her visit in Japan. So that's the way we are trying to inculcate. If 9 o'clock is a class, do we come late? What happens otherwise? So then you find your teachers here are ruthless, right? Unless and otherwise you have some kind of emergency and you have intimated before as a kind of courtesy. We play same. What you are saying, Raman, is fantastic. And just to share with you what Raman mentioned is so important. Last 2 days, you must be aware of that we did capacity building workshop for district education officers and principals of DIET, which is government institution, only on the topic of innovation, entrepreneurship, and design thinking for all schools. But these are the heading districts, 35 districts of Maharashtra. And Maharashtra is almost about 150 million population. And these people who were there with us last 2 days were holding 1 lakh schools in Maharashtra. India has almost close to 1.5 million schools. And as Raman rightly mentioned, almost below 6 years age group, there are about 130 million students, 13 crore children. And there are wonderful experiments already started happening that kind of this younger generation and Viksit Bharat again. What he said at a formative years. And if you do 18 months of structured learning, they can really increase IQ. That's the way experiments are starting. And even though we are a business school, but we are trying to go down to the lowermost level and trying to see what are those experiments like Sujata was sharing with us about rocket learning. Rocket Learning as a very good company doing up to age of 6. And you know Anganwadis in India. So these are for the small children. So we are trying to teach them at that age how human relations should be built between those young children below 6 for them and they're the caretaker and the education ecosystem. At that age, India fortunately has started that process. It takes time. It is not an overnight change. It may take 2 decades to 3 decades, definitely. But we are on the track. And Japan as a country is also, there's a great deal of learning for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think talking about the ethics, I think the cultural norm, how to foster the cultural norm is very important. If you're interested in Japan, maybe I'm the first person for you, maybe not, as a Japanese to
I'm
meet,
sorry,
to
do you want to
meet.
check with them that how many of you are interested in Japan here? Or maybe if there is an opportunity, the whole India will come to you.
Yeah. So please look at the YouTube of the Japanese elementary schools. That is these days, after 45 years, where exactly Japanese strengths are coming from? It's actually the elementary school. When I was small, the absolute cleanness of anything is to clean where anyone can see it. It cannot see it. So, clean, punctual, discipline. These days, we have many Indian kids going to the Japanese elementary school. Maybe in 5 to 10 years, the Indian population in Japan is going to be maybe over 2 million people, maybe, including the workforce too. But we have if the Indian kids going to Japanese school, obviously those kids are going to have those type of discipline. The issue for Japanese, if time goes by, I found Japanese elementary school system is still best in the world in terms of the discipline and punctuality. You are beaten if you lie, you are, beaten, Or so Japanese obsessed with transparent, cleanliness. They're obsessed with cleaning. It's crazy. If you go to Japan, you will find it, everybody is basically cleaning the street. It's crazy. But at the same time, the joke, I just wanted to say one joke is the Japanese political system. It's so less corrupt that if you give some money of small money, it will be very effective. So it's kind of very contradictory about being clean in many means.
Okay. Sangeeta, you wanted to say maybe one liner you said. Yeah.
My sincere apologies.
After this, probably if our guest business school, if you have any question, just keep it ready. Yeah. Yeah, please.
Hiro, my friend, 1 minute late, and I have to stand out. I was 1 hour late. Sorry about that. A very, very good morning to all the students. The student who asked the question on EI, could you raise your hand, please?
He's in a different class.
Okay, Bangalore?
Just show the screens. We have 2-3 other screens. Maybe we have 500-600 students here. Yeah, you can enlarge it. Pawan, can you come on the front? Yeah, Pawan is standing there.
Is Pawan there?
Yeah, he's there.
Fantastic
he's there.
question. Just to add to what Raman and Hiro and Uday has mentioned, I think if AI and EI can come together and connect hands, I think we'll have the humanity ahead and serving the whole of humanity.
Sure.
So on behalf of the Eisenhower Fellowships and the friendship that, thank you very much, Hiro, for coming all the way from Japan and to honor the students here. A very, very warm welcome to you. Thank you very much, Uday, for
Pleasure.
Welcoming here.
This is just the first visit, ma'am. So we will have a lecture of leadership series with him.
Yes.
It's the beginning of our relationship with him.
Absolutely. And Raman, thank you very much for organizing this and getting us all together and connecting the Eisenhower Fellows all over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Maybe I think our guest institution, if you have any question, do you have any question? Just pass on the mic to them if they have. Yeah, maybe next question we'll take it from the other classroom as well. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is Smith Raut. I am from St. John College, Palghar. My question to you is, in a fragmented world, how can leadership balance global vision with local realities?
So I think what is the, so we need to define what is the global vision, right? So I think that basically it's aggregation of the local vision. But I think the important piece is what we are observing in the United States. There's two types of local vision. Local vision for yourself, or local vision as a global citizen. So frankly speaking, what we see is a kind of backlash of the so-called global vision. We talked about multilateralism, global kind of market economy, such as American, so maybe I would call it American-led global system, which was talked about global vision, which also benefited actually many of the countries, including India, by the American global vision, so-called, through World Bank, IMF, which is called Washington Consensus. There's lots of crises, but I think it all benefited for the countries, including India, outside of the United States. But what happened these days is when we think of the global visions, that is why the President Trump emerged, in my understanding, is the global vision was it inclusive, particularly in the United States? Maybe the reason, the causal relationship would be wrong, but sometimes when you talk about the global vision or local reality, it's really difficult to think about the global vision or local reality, either of this, for whom? So who is going to increase that vision? It's always, we need to be careful that, when we talk about vision, there's sometimes people feel I'm excluded, right? So I think, again, there's a question about, it's interesting, globalization versus localization, global vision versus local reality. Is ultimately, either of the vision is going to be really inclusive to the people who really never think of, right? That is how you can make it compatible between global vision and local reality. Thinking about Indian context, of course, you need to think about the local reality first. That is mandate, because if you are going to be in the part of the global vision, you need to be locally successful. So, but it's two ways. I think the lessons or things which we need to avoid is local, having priority on local reality only, or do you think you have a path how to bring maybe country, individual organizations moving up to the global? That is a very important difference. So this is still very conceptual, but I think important difference is how to think about the path forward. I think definitely the way, particularly for the Indian context, starting from local to global, that's for sure. But it was a question for Japan maybe 40 years ago. It was a local reality for Japan to develop, right? We are completely devastated. We have 2 atomic bombs dropped in two large cities. Millions of people died. It was local reality, and then made the global competitive cars like Toyota. Here, I'm still very amazed by the Suzuki. Maruti Suzuki is still there. By the way, the EF had a 3rd generation of Suzuki in the EF this year. So that was a mandate. But Japan, for some reason, forget about Japan's prosperity was for the global prosperity. That was the vision maybe Japanese are lacking. Then we had a trade war with the US. if you have time, please ask ChatGPT what happened between US and Japan is surprisingly similar what is happening between US and China. Semiconductor and any critical technologies and so forth. So once again, the path going forward is local reality to global vision, I'm sure. But don't forget that after you achieve the local goals, local reality, what would it mean to the rest of the world? If you do that exercise or not, will really define the success of India, I believe.
Okay, thanks, Hiro-san. I believe we'll go to the other classroom, which has not yet got a chance. What is it, 202? Yeah, 202, please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. Konnichiwa, Hiroaki-san. This is
Namaste.
classroom 202. So you come from Japan and now you are in US, two completely different cultures. So my question is, how do global leaders, what challenges do global leaders face while working with diverse and cross-cultural teams?
Yeah. So I went to the Harvard Business School when I was 26. So from the day one, I felt, oh, I cannot graduate from this school. That's what I felt, quite honestly, because there's such a cultural differences between Japan. It's completely opposite. You are not allowed to speak up during a class. You're not allowed to put questions over the professors, and you have to be quiet because you are told to do that. So for me, why it is challenging? Because of language barrier. I don't know, maybe another piece of not joke, but I think Japanese English education is the worst in the world. And maybe you can find, I don't know how many of you have a Japanese friend who speaks English, and there's no exception, you're hard to understand what they're saying. So language and culture, and also how to make an argument. Japanese education is about memorizing everything, but not creativity at all. It's the opposite of anything which was taught in the US. So I think, but ultimately why I feel that challenge, it's a basic challenge, by the way, is a totally in soaking, immerse yourself in a totally different in a culture. So ultimately, you cannot imagine what the student next to me thinking about. Okay. What's the background? What's the vision? What's the thought process? So I think fundamentally, it's interesting. Also, there's one interesting anecdote. Many of the global companies CEO, one of the challenge he needs to go through is becoming the regional director for Japan because of such a different culture. So I think there's no wrong and right answer. But in your career, maybe you will have a very different life path. But one of the recommendations is completely immerse yourself. Japan is a good country, by the way, because I want to invite you all to Japan. But if you go through Japanese culture, you will find a fundamentally different thought process, values that will strengthen your leadership quality. Before the session, we are talking about the Indian foreign minister.
Yes.
Yeah. He was. I heard he's doing quite successful now.
Very good.
But maybe part of the reason why he was ambassador to Japan. I think that this is not just supporting my argument. If it doesn't have to be Japan, by the way. But Japan is fundamentally it's a good country, good people, trustful, clean. I want you all to come, but so at any point of your life, maybe even 3 months, 6 months, immerse yourself. Particularly in the culture where no one is going to speak English, for example, and then you will find you don't have to feel it everything, but I was a complete stranger in the classroom in the HBS, which fundamentally changed my cross-cultural, capacity in my career.
Thank you, Hiro-san. We actually kept a time of 12:45. It is 12:48. So should we close, or
Maybe one more?
do you want to take one more?
One more question? Yeah.
One more
One
question.
more question?
Because
If it's okay.
we took your time, so that's why I said we should give you back your time. So maybe one more question. We can have it. One is from this hall. Any other rooms which are still pending?
There's a hand there.
Sorry.
Hand there.
Yeah. Then I was just thinking if any other classroom is pending. No. Classroom is covered at least. Okay. So one hand here. Yes, we'll give it to lady here. So men can wait, please. Women, we always trying to empower. Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am. Just use the mic because you need to reach out to other classrooms. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sapna Singh.
Sorry, what's your good name?
Sapna Singh.
Sapna.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what can young leaders
Just
learn?
bit loud.
Okay.
Yeah.
What can young leaders learn from Japanese leadership values in building strong global teams?
Sorry, I'm just trying to capture this. What is it, Suyada?
What can young leader can learn from Japanese leadership values in building strong global team?
What young students can learn from Japanese leadership? Yeah. Value systems. Learn from Japanese leadership.
Your first slide.
First, right?
Yeah.
First slide. What you said in the first slide.
Okay. Well, these days, Japanese leaders, Japanese leaders are kind of famous about being slow to respond and quiet, and sometimes it's really hard to know yes or no, type of it's a culture. But I would say, Japanese culture, or it's not transactional. It's very long-term view. And once you became in a business relationship, it will last forever. And, we value, it's interesting, Japan is, maybe it's a complete, maybe opposite. Japan is put a virtue on quietness and not making an argument. So put it in this way. Why I recommend you, particularly American leaders, maybe Indian leaders, to be in Japan is because there's in linguistics, there's two types of language. One is high contextual language and low contextual language. And in low contextual language, where many tribes, many races living together in one country like US or India, unless you make an argument, you cannot understand each other. But in Japan, it's super homogeneous country. Everybody is coming, I shouldn't say everybody, but the 98% of the people are Japanese, homogeneous. So Japanese language is actually very different that, even they are not even communicating, even not without communicating a sentence, they can communicate each other. It's a very interesting culture. You don't say many things to communicate. So it's not the lessons or things which you can learn from Japanese leaders, but from Japanese culture that, if you immerse yourself in a culture that being quiet, not communicating each other, but actually they are communicating in a high context. So only by the thing that, even way of communication is different, how the business logic thought process is different, is actually you will learn. I don't know, you should copy that practice. I'm not necessarily saying that. But sometimes, again, if you want to be a global leader, you will lead the different teams, Japanese, Saudis, maybe French or Americans, Australians, each has its own differences and uniqueness. So Japanese is as a kind of an extreme tribe of culture uniqueness. In that sense, but that is a norm, which I even didn't recognize myself. I'm coming from that unique culture, which I believe most of you still unconscious about the norms which you have, the norms which your Indian society around you build up. So again, it's not a direct answer to you, but I would recommend, and why the global Ford, Mark Fields, ex-CEO of Ford, was CEO of Mazda, for example, to lead in a different culture. Why? Well, Carlos Ghosn, the Nissan, he's now in Lebanon. He was kicked out. But until then, he was set as a truly global successful leader. Why? Because he was leading the CEO, the leadership role in the different countries in different contexts. So what I would really strongly recommend is that immerse yourself, ideally non-English speaking country, and learn about what it works and what your leadership doesn't work. That would be the starting point by raising your self-awareness and finding yourself.
Yes, Vidya, take it over. But thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Hiro-san. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the session. Yeah, we would like to present a token of appreciation. We would like to present a small gesture of gratitude, a symbol of our thanks and admiration to your contribution. Thank you once again for taking time to be with us. One moment. We will just hand over the... Yeah. To Hiro-san. Thank you so much.
This is a kind of tribal painting, Warli painting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And please dispatch this to Japan. Don't make him carry this. Okay, that is more important.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for attendance.
Yeah. We would like to present a small token to Dr. Raman Madhok.
Ramanji, thank you very much for your gracious presence. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Sangeeta to make this session happen.
Sangeeta ji, thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity.
Okay, now our student will propose a vote of thanks for the session.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring words. As we move towards growth, we need to stay connected to our roots. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being a part of today's insightful session. A special thank you to our distinguished speakers and panelists for sharing their valuable perspectives and enriching our understanding of the topic. I would also like to express our sincere appreciation to Professor Dr. Uday Saluke, our Group Director, for his inspiring presence and thought-provoking questions that added great depth to the discussion. To our audience, thank you for your enthusiastic participation and thoughtful engagement. Your presence truly made this event meaningful. Last but not the least, thank you to the entire support team behind the scenes to make this session a success. Let's carry forward the learnings and continue to collaborate, innovate, and grow together. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. But next time when you're giving vote of thanks and if Hiro-san is there, you should give in Japanese only. Okay, that's please make note of it. Okay, no consideration. He wants a group photo.
So we'll just say arigato.
Arigato.
Because I must. Thank you so much.
Arigato. That's a nice one. Come, Madhu. After this, maybe can take it to the faculty colleagues, please come on, then team. Jaisal, Vidya, Indu, everyone, come quickly. Oh, sorry, Dr. Patil, please come. Thank you, Dean. Thank you very much. Very small. Among the